Okay, so get ready, because we are diving deep, deep into the heart of creativity today.
Yeah, we are.
And you know that moment, right before you actually make something, when you're staring at a blank page, an empty canvas, I don't know about you, but for me, that's exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Totally, yeah.
And there's this quote by Sidney Sheldon, it's from this book, Reflections on the Act of Creation. And he said,
Oh, we know this one.
a blank piece of paper is God's way of telling us how hard it is to be God.
Yeah.
And when I first read that, it really made me stop and think, is he saying, like, every time we create something, we're playing God?
Well, I think what Sheldon is really getting at is the weight of creation.
Yeah.
That feeling of responsibility when you're literally bringing something from nothing. The book even compares it to the Big Bang.
Whoa, okay, so it's a little more profound than just, like, dealing
Yeah.
with writer's block, right?
Definitely. It's this huge existential thing that Reflections on the Act of Creation really delves into. Throughout history, creatives have had to deal with these massive psychological hurdles. It even talks about, just imagine Michelangelo staring up at the Sistine Chapel ceiling before he started.
Oh, my God.
Talk about a blank canvas.
Yeah, that's intimidating. But, I mean, Sheldon also talks about the void being this fertile ground for imagination.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's not all doom and gloom.
Right. The void's not just like an obstacle. It's also this amazing invitation. The book makes a really big point that until you make that first mark, anything is possible.
It's
like
pure potential.
Exactly.
It's actually kind of freeing.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Every masterpiece, every invention, every amazing idea ever,
Yeah.
they all came from that starting point, from that void.
Okay, so the real challenge is stepping into the void, that blank space. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
But then that brings us to divine inspiration.
Ah.
Is that even a real thing? I mean, because Reflections on the Act of Creation, the author talks about it as this driving force behind creativity. And I have to admit, sometimes it does feel like ideas just
appear.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
It is really interesting, isn't it? The book goes into some different theories about where inspiration comes from.
Yeah.
Maybe it's from our subconscious. Maybe it's from, the environment around us, the things we're seeing and hearing. There's even a theory about random neural firings in the brain causing those aha moments.
So maybe it's like a combination. You need the muse, but you also need to put in the work.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. The key takeaway here is that we need to create the right conditions for inspiration.
Yeah.
Be open, be curious, and really engage with the world around you.
That makes sense. So we've talked about how creating is kind of like channeling a divine spark. We need to embrace that challenge of the void, the place where possibility and fear meet.
Right, and that's where inspiration comes from.
Okay, but before we go, I have one last thought. The author really focused on the void at the beginning of a creative project.
Okay.
But what about the void that shows up in the middle of a project?
Oh, yeah.
When you just hit a wall and you feel totally lost.
That's a great point. Maybe every creative breakthrough, big or small, requires us to face the void in some way. Maybe it's not about avoiding it, but about learning how to move through it.
Huh. Maybe it's not just about starting, but also about persisting, even when we're faced with that, like emptiness, that fear.
Absolutely.
Well, that is deep. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
There is so much to think about here.